I'm with Naota Hashimoto today, Dr. Noda, and today we're going to talk to him and find out a little bit more about TrackStat. So it's a pleasure to have you on board today, Doctor. I know you're super busy, but I've had some questions for you, and I'm glad that you made some time to sit down with us and kind of go through a couple of questions that I have, if you don't mind.
Cool. Yeah.
Okay. So the first question I have, and I've heard a lot of good things about TrackStat, and one of the things was, I know a lot of doctors, they struggle with patients falling through the cracks. We hear it all the time. And I'm on social media, I'm on Facebook, I'm hearing people like, what product are you using for this? This is what's going on in our practice. But that's a very common thing. And then they're falling out of their care plans, right? So how does TrackStat make a difference? How is it helping practices keep patients on schedule and improve retention?
Well, it's from the very beginning, we're just trying to take, like, if you take an EHR, that's like a system of record, it's just a bunch of data. And it's really built for documentation, billing, and then scheduling. And then to take action on people that have dropped out, you have to run these queries, these reports, and they're instantaneously out of date when you run them. And then you might have to have someone go through and figure out who to reach out to. So then they have to wait for air quotes downtime. There's some automation softwares that will like do auto texting, but the main thing we do is we take all that information and we just make it easy for people to know where to focus. Whether it's cleaning up bad data, finding patients that have fallen through the cracks, following patients that are starting to become non-compliant. So we're just trying to take that data and make it more actionable. Like, so a no-showing for appointment, right? We'll text them automatically. They still haven't scheduled the next day. We text them automatically. And then we give them a list of the non-responders. And from there, they have a workflow where they could easily text, email, schedule them, make a note without leaving the screen. And then if the front desk knew that they're being measured on their rescheduling rate and they're held accountable to that, then they're going to do a better job. So we have all of that put together. And that's just like one simple example of a no-show appointment.
Right. Wonderful. Another question I have is how is TrackStat different in making life easier for the staff and actually increasing profitability in the practice?
Well, like one of the things we focus on is like taking like fragmented software, right? They'll have a credit card software. They might have a marketing software through their agency. Like a lot of agencies use a software called Go High Level. It's a white label. They'll call it something else. They have their EHR, they have their spreadsheets, and we're just harvesting all that data and putting it together and creating automations using AI and having workflows, right?
Right,
And so we're just allowing them to get a lot more done in less time.
right. And I was just thinking, is there a perfect size for the office that's a really good fit for TrackStat, or is
Uh,
it
like we have, I'd say husband-wife practices are our favorite. Like essentially, if you have an operator that's interested in profitability, those are our best ones because we reduce operating costs
right?
and then we help increase visits from better paying patients. So that's going to be your profitability. We have a surprising number of solopreneurs. So we have a number of doctors that don't have any staff, right? And that's why we've been busy building out. And maybe by the time you send this out, we're releasing an AI receptionist that's going to chase leads, answer the phone, schedule, reschedule, and stuff like that. So we have big group practices with like 24 locations. We
Mm,
have a number of them that are one or two, but like we probably have at least 150 businesses that have at least two or more clinics. And we have some that are 24, a dozen, 18, 10,
right,
5, 6, and stuff like that. So we have a number of those so that obviously they pay for each one of those like accounts, but like we have actually a surprising number of people that have group practices, but we also have a lot of these solopreneurs too.
gotcha.
So
Is it easy for a solo practitioner or, a small staff to kind of get up and going? Is there training involved?
we do
Help
training,
me
and
out
then
for.
what we used to do what we call training, and then now I know it's semantics, and I've found that people don't want training, they just want it working. So what we find is find out the kind of practice, and then if you're a solopreneur, group practice, just single practice, family practice, or a certain kind of niche, there's a slight variation in the setup. And then so we just find out what kind of practice they are. And
Got it.
then it's just kind of
Makes
like a
sense.
guided onboarding. We get to appointment reminders. This is what typically works best for these kind of practices. Is that
Mm,
how you want it set up? And they'll say, yeah, that sounds great. And then we just set it up that way. So it's a guided onboarding, but before we used to do training and then we come back to the next call, they didn't do any of the stuff, or they tried to set it up 5 days later. They forgot almost everything and they ask us
Right.
20 questions. And it's just people just want it working. And
Right.
then we'll record those. So it's like they're training. So at the end of, 3 to 4 calls, everything's done and set up.
Right. Wonderful. Can you give me an example, or can you give us an example of a practice that's using TrackStat to uncover hidden revenue or fill more appointments?
Yeah, that's so like with retention, I like looking at like how many visits people have scheduled out over the next 30 days. And if practices schedule, even if it's 6 visits at a time, they will probably double, triple, or quadruple where patients drop out at. So for practices scheduled by the visit, typically they'll lose half of their patients between visits 3 through 6. And then the more visits they schedule out, the higher that number gets. But it's even if they schedule out 6 at a time, they're going to pretty much double or triple that number. So then that's going to help a lot. Because if you want more revenue, you got to like charge more per visit. You got
Right.
to see them more often or see more visits. And then you got to reduce your operating costs and reduce your AR. With AR, right, we have our huddle report so you can see all the people coming in that owe money. So then if you collect that money ahead of time, we have integrations with 2 payment processors like Fortis and Cash Practice as of today. So people find that it's a lot easier to e-invoice out of our software. And like I just had a call with a client and they just said that their patients love it and their AR is just shrinking because like they were mailing out statements before and that just wasn't working very well. So now they're just texting and emailing out a statement. They could just click and pay it. And
Right.
then
Right.
as far as visits go, like we give you the tools to see who's falling off track. We'll give you automations. And then with our Recall AI, we score all the patients and we put ones that are more likely to schedule at the top and less likely to schedule at the bottom. And then, your metrics, your KPIs are going to show you if your measures are working in the right way. Like, I like how many visits scheduled out over the next 30 days, how many visits you had this week, and then what are the percentage of people that left with a future appointment. And those are like 3 key scheduling metrics.
Right. Gotcha. One of the things that you and I talked about a week or so ago is you mentioned that you created this for your practice, basically. So this wasn't created by, some engineer like myself, some guy on the outside, but somebody who had to operate and wanted to operate more efficiently and more profitably. And that's where this technology was basically born from,
Yeah,
right?
like essentially it's just stuff that I've learned from consultants and business books, and we just applied it. But like the problem is I had to throw people at the problem, right?
Right.
I had a stats tracking software. We had 7 patient tracking Google Sheets, stat sheets and patient tracking sheets. We had a texting software. We had a marketing CRM. Nothing talked to each other. And yeah, we had a busy practice. It was 3.5 million a year. So like it
Wow.
was a good sized practice and it technically worked, but like it was a pain in the butt. I looked for a
Right.
solution out there, it didn't exist, and still doesn't exist. And if I would have known how much effort it would have taken, I probably wouldn't have started this, but I was naive enough that I was frustrated, and then we just started building it.
Right. That's awesome. And I've gotten such great feedback from some of our mutual clients as well, too. And that's why we're kind of connected up here today. So for my listeners, my clients, I want to make sure they know how to reach out to you, how to find out more about TrackStat and maybe get started. What's the best way for them to do that?
They could just go to our website, trackstat.org, trackstat.org, and we'll put a link in there and they could click, watch a demo, and then from there they could just schedule a Zoom. And if they like it from there, they could just do a free trial. We're adding other EHRs in there and just adding more AI. And yeah, our goal is to help practices be more profitable either by cutting labor, seeing more people, or focusing on people that pay more per visit.
Right. That's
So
wonderful. Yeah, like I said, all the feedback I've gotten from my doctor has been very good. So I'm glad we had this time to kind of chat and find out a little bit more about TrackStat as well, too. I'm going to make sure we get the information over to my clients and let them reach out to you.
cool. Thank you very much for
Okay,
having me.
you bet. Thanks for being here, Doc.